Welcome to episode 43 of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today we're talking about art retreats with my guest, Eilzabeth Duvivier. Eilzabeth is the founder and director of Squam Art Workshops. She loves long, lazy hours to write, wild pagan dinner parties, the smell of grated ginger, and wandering into the mystic, among other things. Her most favorite job ever was teaching creative writing at the New Hampshire Institute of Art. She completely overindulges her dogs and has a mad crush on Providence, Rhode Island. Eilzabeth Duvivier, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Abby.
I think that your intro might be sort of the most fun intro of any guest I've ever had. I have to say, I was like, wow, that's a good one.
Well,
very
I have
descriptive.
To tell you, it's always challenging for me. It's not often, very rare, that I have to deliver up a bio. And when I do, it is a challenge for me. I don't generally see myself from a perspective that fits, in a nice, neat box.
Right.
So, but that's definitely how I see myself. So
yeah. There it is. Exactly. And I think that's a good thing. I like the smell of grated ginger too. So.
Me too. It's really energizing. And every time I smell, it'll take me either to like the Caribbean or I love to cook. So and there are lots of smells I like, but that one in particular, every time it gets me. Like if you're grating fresh ginger, it just gets me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I can relate. So, all right. So I want to hear a little bit about you before we jump into hearing about Squam. So where did you grow up?
I grew up outside Philadelphia. I was born in Boston, and we lived there. We lived in Newton, which is a little suburb outside Boston, till I was about 5. And what's funny is when I went to college, I told everyone I was from Boston because it was just so imprinted on my head. My mother is from Boston, and she really never resettled to Philadelphia. And it was only when I was in college, I was like, wait, I went from kindergarten through 12th grade in Pennsylvania. I'm not from Boston. I'm from Pennsylvania. But it was just very that was home. Home was Boston. But I actually grew up in a town called Media, and it's, it's just a little suburb outside Philadelphia.
Okay. And were your parents creative people, and what did they do?
My dad is an aeronautical engineer, so that's why we were in Boston. He was doing some doctorate work at MIT. And engineers, I believe engineers are extremely creative. I know that they are. They're problem solvers by nature. It's a different sort of creativity. But I worked with engineers. At one point, I worked in an engineering manufacturing company for about 7 years. So I see them as very creative. And he loved to draw and sketch, but more like airplanes and engines and things that weren't really into my thing. My mother had worked for a newspaper, the Boston Post, which was a huge newspaper before it folded in 1956. And so she loved writing. She loved journalism. She loved politics. She still does. They're both still alive, so I shouldn't be talking about them in the past tense. They still love all these things. Big readers. I mean, just the house of books, So that is really the influence in terms of creativity was more of a, brain-centered, for lack of a better word, intellectual-centered kind of creative environment. Not so much with the hands-on. That was my grandmother who lived with us for a while. And I've always said the June Squam session, and I actually said it the night we launched it, her birthday was June 4th, and it's always the first week of June. And she was the one who knit and sewed and hooked rugs, and I have tons of things in my home that she made with her hands, and she always was making something with her hands. So I had kind of a full gamut. I definitely didn't have the exposure to artists, living artists. I thought artists were all dead, and you had to be born in a special pod, and you were just an artist from the day you arrived. I just had very odd understandings of artists as a kid.
That's so funny. I think I really did too. I remember feeling like I couldn't understand how an artist would just make art all day. Like, how is that possible? Like, wouldn't they just get tired of like constantly painting? Like, I just couldn't understand. I remember being as a kid, just that was like totally confounding to me. Like, I don't think I really knew a working artist. And so I couldn't ask questions, and I just didn't think that was a possibility. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me
That's
too.
interesting.
Yep.
Okay. So where did you go to school, and what did you study?
At what point?
Like for college?
For college?
Yeah.
I went to school. Well, I should back up a little bit.
Okay.
In high school, I got a scholarship to the Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts, where I was immersed in all sorts of arts. They had, drawing, painting, ballet. I was there for writing, creative writing. And that really broke my world open as a junior. So I was probably 15, 16, and completely, bouleversé, just flipped me on my head, and dropped me into a world. I mean, these were teenagers who were photographers, like real photographers, and it was just like, wow. And so when I came out of that, I was heading into my senior year, and really didn't want to go to college. I truly did not have any interest in going to the normal 4-year liberal arts experience at all. And my parents were quite concerned about this. And so as we went through the process, I I would apply to the schools they wanted me to go to, and then I would just refuse to go. And it was one of those fun teenage times, I'm sure, for them. But the reason I wanted to share that is kind of an odd life change. And I'm sure we can all look back at our lives and be like, wow, like, where did you get off on the tracks over here? But what happened was, because of the scholarship, and I had finished all my English requirements, I was allowed to go to Swarthmore College, which was just a town over or so. So my senior year in high school, I was going to freshman English classes at Swarthmore, which is a pretty heavy duty.
That's an amazing school. So that's a great opportunity. Yeah.
And so once I was there, I was like, okay, I could do this, because I really liked Swarthmore. But it was too late at that point to do because you apply in, October. And so then by that time it was, April, May, June. I think it was June. And my mother was a little bit on edge that I wasn't going to college. And she said, well, you have these friends at Swarthmore, and their father's a professor at this college in Wisconsin. And it was Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. And she said, why don't you go there for a year, and then you can transfer to Swarthmore. And I was like, okay, So I went out to Wisconsin, which I had no idea what that was about. I can't even begin to tell you how clueless I was. It would be embarrassing if I really admitted my geographical limitations. But I mean, really, at the time, it's embarrassing. I was very knowledgeable about some things, and then I thought Chicago was a state. I thought it was north of I don't know where. And so I get to Wisconsin, I get to Lawrence, which is a lovely school, and I love the Midwest. I had never been there. I love the people. I love the energy. I love the vibe. I made good friends. And so by the end of the first year, I didn't want to transfer. It was very social. I had a social life, and I wasn't interested in letting it go. Academically, it didn't rock my world. So I kind of finished things up pretty early, and then did a second degree in French. And so that was that. And then after college, I'm not a role model to anyone. That's what I really want to underline here. I am not a role model. I did not want to do anything that was being asked of me. My vision and my dream was to live on a mountain somewhere and just write, which was not an option. So I ended up in boarding school teaching French and coaching lacrosse at a prep school. It's funny, I probably shouldn't say that, but I guess I can say this on the air. I was at a school that first year in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and one of my students was Justin Theroux, who's now engaged to Jennifer Aniston, which is kind of
my goodness, that's funny.
I know, it's silly. You meet different people along the way.
Yeah.
As coach, I was at boarding school, and then I was at boarding school in New Hampshire, Holderness.
Oh, yeah.
But that was definitely not for me. I am a deep, deep introvert, and need lots and lots of alone time. And when you're teaching at a boarding school, you are full on mommy running the dorm, coming in at midnight. They're like, he broke up with me and she's mad at me. And, it's just like it never ends. You're coaching and you're teaching and you're coaching and teaching. So in the summers, I would go to Middlebury College, and I was doing graduate work there at the French School and also at Red Loaf. And then in about, I was about 30. I quit all of that and just, it was just one of those life things where I did not want to be in New Hampshire. I was there because my, who's now my ex-husband, wonderful, wonderful guy. We're great friends. I have to say that because if you say divorce, people are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Anyway, he wanted to be in New Hampshire. I did not want to be in New Hampshire, but the compromise was, well, then I won't work and I will write, full time. And so that was how that all began. So that's pretty much my school.
Interesting. Okay, so that's how you made it to New Hampshire, which is where Squam is located.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so then you began Squam in Squam Art Workshops in 2008, and it was sort of a way to bring a similar experience to the East Coast as the one that you'd had at Artfest.
Exactly.
So what is Artfest for people who maybe haven't heard of it or who have never been, and describe like what your experience was like that made you say, I want to do this on the East Coast?
Artfest is just one of the most amazing, amazing things. It changed my life, but I also happen to know it changed many, many, many lives. I bow down to Tisha Moore, who is the founder of that. I don't think she's doing that exact thing anymore, but she always is doing very, very cool things. And so much of the community that I know and grew from in this online world and the Squam kind of gatherings that happen came right out of Artfest. So I really see her as a central beginning point for so much that we take for granted right now that we see everywhere in these online workshops and all these creative things. What I loved about it for me was prior to that, and I've said this before, so if someone's listening, they're like, God, I've heard that story so many times. But I thought I had a social disorder, Abby. I really did. I was working at a company, in an engineering manufacturing company. This is in 2006. And I'd been there for about 7 years, and I'm living in New Hampshire, and I just really didn't have any friends. That's the honest truth. I couldn't connect with the people at work. They were lovely, they were kind, they were wonderful, and we had nothing in common. And so I would just feel like there was clearly something wrong with me. They all got along. They all wanted to talk about the things that they were talking about. So for me, Artfest was a revelation because it connected me with my tribe. Because once I got connected with my tribe, I was fine. I knew they existed. They might not live in New Hampshire, but they exist. And online, I can connect with them and I can find them, and I don't feel so alienated and I don't feel so alone. And it's funny, I know you spoke with Melanie Falick recently, and I was talking to her a couple weeks ago, and she was saying how at one point in the knitting, she was always a knitter, and she worked at this magazine early on in her career, and she was like, knitters were all in the closet. She's like, it was 10 years after I left that magazine, I ran into some friends, and we realized we were all knitters at that time, but we never told each other. And so I feel that for me, it was sort of like that. Like I found a connection to people that I had never had in my life. Okay. I'd never had that.
Right. So your people were there, and
yes.
And Artfest is like a weekend long retreat, and there are workshops and.
Yep. Tisha's focus was mostly mixed media, as I remember it. It was much larger than anything I do at Squam. Squam, I never go over 200 people ever.
Okay.
Tisha's were like 350, and the last time I went, it was a lot more than that. It might have even been like 500. So they were much larger, but it was very mixed media focused, which I adore. I love mixed media, but when I started Squam, I wanted much more variety of things. Anything that I was interested in, I kind of wanted to have there. So, there's always, from the get-go, there was always mixed media, but there was always something three-dimensional, like outdoor Andy Goldsworthy kind of sculpture. There was painting, there was photography, there was writing. And then obviously as soon as we expanded into the June and the textiles, You had knitting and embroidery and sewing and repurposing, and it just went on from there. So basically we do everything that we can do in 4 days so there's no oil painting, there's no clay, no ceramics. And it's tough to do certain things like quilting and dyeing, because just at least at Squam at the lake, the environment just doesn't really lend itself to it. I've tried it. It's just hard. And there's so many great retreats for those things that it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay. So tell us a little bit about the place itself. So tell us about Squam Lake and what it looks like, what the camp is like. I know there are a lot of camps right around that area. So just sort of describe the physical environment.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of two things. There's Squam Lake, which is extraordinary because it's very, very well protected. And if you go about 3 miles across from it, you're at Winnipesaukee, Lake Winnipesaukee, which is the largest lake. Squam is the second largest lake in New Hampshire. And it wasn't as well protected. And so you have, big boats and jet skis and people who want to put grass right up to the lake and just doing, it's just not as keeping it as tranquil and natural. Squam has a very dedicated body that we Squam Art Workshops donates to every single year, which is called the Squam Lakes Association. I don't know, something like that. I'll have to look up. I think it's Squam Lakes Association and Conservation Society. I don't know. It's not my website, but anyway, it takes care of the lake. It really keeps things where people don't build houses right up to the edge. They have a horsepower limit on the boat size, so that keeps people's big boats off. It's mostly for sailing. It's mostly for kayaking, and that allows the loons and the eagles to nest and have more tranquility. And so the lake itself is lovely. It's surrounded by the White Mountains, so from camp you can swim and you can hike, and then you can just go right across the street, which is where I used to live. I used to live on the side of Doublehead Mountain and hike the mountains, just walk right up the mountains. So it's beautiful. If you like that kind of thing, if you like pine trees and lakes and, mountains, it's beautiful. If that's not your vibe, you won't like it. And then the camps themselves are a fascinating story, and I would encourage anyone to go to the Rocky Weld website. It's rdcsquam.com and read up on the history. That was begun by 2 women in the late 1800s who founded the camps, and then the older woman died, and the younger woman, who was a single mom with 2 children in her 20s because of the Civil War, she was a single mom, and she continued growing that camp as a place for families to come. And that's why each cottage has a weird name. They're either a family name or a funny name, but each of those cottages were a family. And so they're not set up like dormitories or hotels. They're set up like a home. There's the bathrooms down the hall, and there's bedrooms, and there's a living room and a dock, etc. So they're each quirky and they're each unique, and people who come to the art workshops really enjoy, I want to be in Brown Betty, or I want to be in Arc, or can I be in Summers this year? And, so there's qualities to the experience of staying in different cottages. But it's really beautiful. I don't know. It's a very sacred space. When you get there, the world kind of drops off, and you drop into a certain deep, deep time. And I think that's part of the appeal of the 4 days is everything's taken care of. It's a resort. So food, laundry, not laundry, but housekeeping, all that kind of stuff. You don't have anything to worry about. You don't have to drive anywhere. You walk everywhere. So your days stretch out. All you're focused on is whatever interests you most, if it's embroidery or painting or knitting or photography, and you're around other people who are passionate about those very same things. And so your days just get really rich and slow, and you breathe. There's just a lot of you can just sit and hang out, and it's quiet. And internet historically has been a bit sketchy. They're bringing it in, and it's there, but it's also a really good opportunity to be offline and be off your phone. And so, yeah, it's kind of like that.
Okay. So it sounds amazing. The movie on Golden Pond was filmed in Squam Lake, right?
Yeah.
So for people who might have seen that movie way back when and need a visual that
it's exactly like that. That's the town. It's Holderness is still exactly like that. So and they do have tours on the lake if you wanted to take it, but you don't even need to take a tour. You can just be like, oh, there's that cottage, and oh, there's that house. It looks exactly the same. But that, again, goes to that conservation society who has worked so hard to protect the natural beauty and keep things gentle and not built up.
Right. And I went to sleepaway camp when I was a kid for 6 summers for a month at a time. And I think
Where did you go?
Well, I went to I'm Jewish. I went to a conservative Jewish sleepaway camp called Camp Ramah in Palmer, Massachusetts.
Palmer's beautiful.
Yeah. And it was on a lake and, sort of a little bit similar. But I can relate to that feeling of, you don't have any responsibility.
Right.
You're just there, and you're like, the days take on a different quality because you're just like with peers and pursuing things you're interested in, and also just doing nothing. And like just swimming. And there's something really. The memory of that time is a very special thing. My kids actually go to that camp now, and so I went back for the first time, and you go back and it's like, oh my gosh, this is where it was. It seems like a made up place almost.
Yeah. Oh, it feels very made up when I go there. I do. And I think the art fair punches that the most to me because it's like this, like all of a sudden this like magical place in the woods with the twinkle lights, and hundreds of people drive and come to this fair that's like it's like Xanadu, and then it goes away. The next morning, it's like it's all gone. It's back to pine trees, and so that piece. But I do want to go back to what you were saying, since you've had the experience. There are 2 things that came to me as you were sharing that. One was you get so into the present moment. You're just so very, very awake and very, very alive, and that's what happened for me at Artfest. I became incredibly awake. I woke up in a way. And what you were describing as a kid being there, that sense of time, you're so in the moment. You're not distracted by worries and stresses and things. And so that's part of the experience that I think has great appeal. But I wanted to ask you, for you, when you were going for all those summers, is part of the experience, or was part of the experience for you, the relationships, the friendships that you made?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. For sure. Like camp friends are a special kind of friend. Yeah, for sure.
And that's what happens at Squam Art Workshops, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. And I've heard a lot of people who, come back from Squam, who are bloggers or who I know from Twitter, or I know from Instagram. And they'll be like, I want to write a post about Squam, about the weekend, but I can't even write about it. Like I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to describe it. And I just wondered what you feel like they're getting at with that feeling of just sort of not being able to put it down.
That's beautiful, because it's an experience. It's an experience. It's not a thing. It's not a class. It's not, it's what you get is ineffable. It's ephemeral. It is unquantifiable. You had it. It's real, but it cannot. And that's why with the raves, that's where I just direct people and like, what is this? What do you do? I'm like, what? Just go to the raves and read what other people write, because A, it's better than if I try and tell you what it is. And B, they're saying the same thing over and over again. It's like, I can't put it into words, but I'm going to try. Here are some photographs. It's an experience. It's an experience. It's my job. I'm kind of like the program director, not program director. What is it? Stage manager. I'm like a stage manager. I'm like behind the scenes, like setting things up and making sure like, oh, this scene needs a broom and this scene needs bowls and whatever. But it's like creating this stage. And then the people who come, the teachers and the people, it doesn't matter if you came the time before. You aren't the same person you were the last time you came. A year has passed. It never stays the same. It can never stay the same, because each time you come together, it's a different group of people, and it's a different set of classes, and it's a different weather can happen differently. And so it's theater. It's an ephemeral experience. We all come together. We're all in this moment. We're all in this weekend, and then it goes away. And that's why people, and also I do think some people have a very deep personal experience and they don't actually want to blog about it or share it because it almost to try and put it into words kind of brings it down, like, oh, woo woo, that sounds woo woo, and so they don't want to share it because it's like, I had it and it's personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, you described sort of what kinds of classes work well, and what kinds of classes are not really feasible in the environment, but tell us some specifics, who are some of the instructors who have taught at Squam this past year, and what do you look for in the kinds of classes that you bring in? What do you think, the people who attend Squam and want to take classes will like? How do you figure that out?
Ha 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 ha. That's the magic question. That's the magic question. I don't have it figured out. I do pretty well. I think that's the magic sauce. I put together classes that I personally would want to take. That's number one. If I don't want to take the class, I don't generally offer it. I don't think I think someone out there will like it. I have to be really, really passionate about it. I have to be oh my God, I want to be in that class. Last year, oh, now you're really testing me. There are people who have come, repeatedly. Gosh, that's probably hard. I think I'd be easier saying who's coming this year just because of my brain freeze.
Right. You're moved on to the next.
Who've come before. And then I can sort of talk about how I bring teachers in because I have some interesting stories there. And I do think that that's one of the gifts that I feel personally I do that I'm really proud of, which is this coming year in June, some new teachers, Bristol Ivy, Amy Christophers, Thea Coleman, Kate Atherley, those are all knitters, and they are coming for the first time. Bristol and Amy and Thea have come up to Squam for the fair, but they're coming to teach. Gudrun Johnston is going to be teaching, and she's been teaching since the beginning. I think the only year she didn't teach in the spring was maybe 2009. We have poetry with Sarah Sousa. We have embroidery with Joetta Maui, and Beth Miller is coming and teaching rug hooking, and Wood has come several years in a row. She does fall and spring. This year she's doing spring, and she teaches these amazing created you just have to go to her website to see what she makes. It's sewing and embroidery, but she creates figures and botanicals, and they're awesome. And Colleen Atara's story is interesting. She came and attended Squam, and then now she is teaching, and she teaches mixed media, and I absolutely adore her to the moon and back. I'm actually sitting in the office looking at her cards. We sell her cards here at the studio, and her words. Actually, she's a huge. I'm a huge fan. Carrie Lemon comes all the way from the UK, and she teaches drawing. Susa Talon is teaching a mixed media writing sacred spirit class. Terry Doucher teaches this one I love because people get really empowered. They use power tools. We go out to Terry's studio, and they learn how to use tools, and the empowerment is incredible. When you learn how to make your own bookcase, when you learn how to make your own table, when you learn how to make your own cupboard, it's like people are on fire. They're like, I'm going home and I'm making all this stuff. And
that's awesome.
And then in the fall, we have a bunch of great teachers. Harriet Goodall's coming back from Australia, which I'm super excited about. I adore her weaving. One person, this was kind of the story I wanted to tell you about, was Aqua Holmes, who's in Boston. I found her work. She's mixed media. I absolutely love her work, and reached out to her. And again, she's got a very urban style, and she lives in Roxbury, so I wasn't even sure she'd be interested. And she loves teaching. She's just a total kindred spirit. We had some great connections, and so she's coming up in September. And then on Martin Luther King Day, I was on Google, because that's my homepage, and there was this artwork And I was like, God, that looks so familiar. My God, that looks just like Equa. And it's just like, and it was hers. And I was just like, that was very, very cool.
That's amazing. Her work is sort of like Ezra Jack Keats in a way. It's kind of like sort of collage illustration.
Yes.
And it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. And then another new teacher that I found I just look for people that I haven't seen out teaching in workshops, because obviously if people teach in lots of places, just from a business standpoint, if you can take a class with someone in California, why would you get on a plane and come to New Hampshire? Right. So I think that's part of my job, is to bring new people to the fore. But what's been really wonderful is I have found that Squam is a great platform for people to launch their careers in some instances, if that's what they want to do. They get some really good exposure, and if they like teaching, then they go on and get invitations in lots of other places. And so Dana Ray is coming to do gouache, which we've never had a class strictly on gouache. So yeah, it's just, I'm excited. It's good. There's just tons of yummy people. Paige Sargison's coming, if you're into jewelry. Oh my God. She's like I think she's in Brooklyn, and she's just like, sometimes I look at people and they write me and they're like, they want to come teach. I'm like, seriously? Do you know we're going to be in the woods? Do you know it's like in Nowheresville? But they come.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, to me, at least in the way that I see it, I feel like, you're kind of like the premier place to go. Like you're the, you're the art workshop. Absolutely. People are like, oh, you going to Squam? For sure.
That's very, very generous.
Yeah. I also think as a first teaching experience, it must be really wonderful. I know I had Ann Wood on the podcast some time ago.
Isn't she cool?
She is. And she's amazing. But she was talking about how teaching at Squam was either one of or the first time that she had taught.
It was the first time she taught.
Yeah. People to make the things that she makes. And afterward, I think it really had an overall effect on her about sort of deciding to share her patterns with other people. And it's just so, I don't know. It's just such an interesting experience that, that teaching can have for somebody who maybe has never done it before and gets to do it at Squam as the first experience.
Thank you so much for that recognition, because I do spend a lot of energy there. When I reach out to an artist, teaching is its own art, as you know. And so someone can be a phenomenal artist and not be a teacher. And someone might have the potential to be a teacher, but, it takes some learning. And I've been teaching since I was 19. So for me, it's like, let me help you shepherd. I can name off a bunch of people who taught for the first time at Squam, and I got very involved with helping them structure it. And I kept their classes small the first year, and I'd have an assistant there, or I actually wrote the curriculum, or, whatever it took. But, Maya Donefeld started teaching at Squam. Flora Boley started teaching painting at Squam. She was a yoga teacher. And, they've gone on to do amazing things. And so when I approached Anne, and she was just like, ooh, I don't know. I've never taught before. And I was like, oh. And it turns out she's a phenomenal teacher, just a phenomenal, generous, fabulous teacher. Her class was one of the first ones to sell out this year. And it also opened her eyes up to oh, well, I could offer patterns, which, we shared a cottage last fall. And so we were talking, things like what we've been doing and how things have been growing. And she had this whole thing that had grown out of this. And that does feel, it feels good. It feels good to see things go forward in such beautiful ways, and know that I had some part of helping create a space where people can expand their creative stuff. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Well, yeah, and it's not just for the people taking classes, but it can also be for the instructors as well, I think is what I was getting at. And that's really wonderful. And so a couple of questions. Is it competitive to get into the classes? In other words, when everyone who's registered has signed up, and then, the classes are open, released. Is it like a crazy scramble, which I know it can be, like at QuiltCon, the server crashes and everybody's going crazy? Or is it sort of more zen? How do you figure that part out?
it got a little crazy a couple of years ago. We do everything by hand, just so you know. We don't use generated programs because I'm very hands-on in terms of putting people into cottages, putting people together. There's just really something about certain groups coming together, and I can get a vibe from someone, and if someone's coming for the first time and they're coming by themselves, and I get a vibe of like, oh, I think they would like these people over here, and so that's been a big piece of it. And then the other thing in terms of the classes, things got a little intense because I didn't have the pre-registration in place, and so people just get very stressed out. They're like, oh, what if I don't get my class? And this bubble of energy grew. So what I began doing was in December, I just put up a pre-registration. I'm like, look, just if you pre-register, your spot's guaranteed. You're not guaranteed a cottage. You're not guaranteed which classes, but you're guaranteed a spot. And that changed everything. People just breathed easier. They knew that I was going to make sure they were going to get the classes they wanted. And on the form, they have 3 choice. They can do as many as they want, but they give me their first 3 choices. Like, what's the number 1 class you want most? And then what's the next class and what's the next class? So as I'm processing it, if their number 1 choice is closed on Thursday, but open on Friday, I can look at that and go, oh, well, then I'll put them in the Friday session and then I'll put their other class on Thursday. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe I could create a computer program to do it, but
with just 200 people, it's like sort of manageable for you. Like you can hand do it. Yeah,
I can hand do it. And this is the oddest thing. And I have no idea how it happens, but somehow everybody, it's like that game. Do you remember that drop 4 game where they're like little discs at the top and they all kind of drop down? And it's like that. Like everybody's first choices aren't the same. Uh-huh. So yes, there are popular classes and there are classes that close before other classes, but if you get your registration in to me within the first 2 weeks, you pretty much always get one, if not both, of your first choices. Right. It's just the way it goes. I don't know how it works.
Well, perhaps right. I mean, perhaps because you are selecting enough sort of a variety of interesting and desirable instructors that there's, like the people who are signing up for different reasons, and so it evens itself out. I think that might be part of it.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things people will write is they'll say, "Okay, these are my first 2 choices, but honestly, it was so hard to choose, so I really don't care.
So put me in something."
Yeah, right, sort of. Right. So there is that. I mean, it's so rare. It's just so rare that someone sends a registration in that says, I can hardly, maybe last year, someone will send a registration like, this is the only class I want. If I can't be in this class, please refund, and I'll be like, hey, that's not a problem. Like, in a sense, like if it's open, you're in. And if it's not, here's your refund. Like, it's fine. But it's really rare that someone's that rigid.
Right.
Most people who come are really open to the experience and very open to everything's working out for them in the best way possible. And it's really what happens.
Yeah, because, I've had this experience before where I didn't get my first choice at something, got like a second or third choice, and it turned out to be better than what my first, so sometimes, luck of the draw can be better than what you had planned out,
Right.
So that
can
happen.
I ask you, as you've gone to events, what are some of your favorite things in your experiences as you've gone to, have you gone to quilting or embroidery, or what do you,
I'll get back to you in March because I'm going to Craftcation, which is the first time that I've been to sort of an event related to what I do now. So I don't have direct feedback yet, but I'll get back to you on that.
What are you going to take there?
Well, I'm teaching a bunch of classes. I haven't chosen what I'm going to take yet, but I was just looking at the roster today and there's all of these interesting things. So it's going to be hard to choose, but I think like you said, there are a lot of things that I'm interested in and a lot of people that I really want to meet and see teach. So I think I'll be happy.
What are you teaching?
I'm teaching a class about email newsletters and how to set one up to build community around your art and around what you make. And then I'm sitting I'm hosting a panel on podcasting, and then I'm sitting on 2 other panels, one about work-life balance and one about managing a business. So
that's podcasting is just so, I didn't get it at first, but now Well, I got introduced to it through knitters, because now it makes so much sense. As you're knitting, you want to listen to something. You don't necessarily want to be watching something.
Right.
And it's just so enriching and so, I'm so into it. But it took me a while. I didn't get it. And now I'm like, what's your favorite podcast? Podcasts are so cool.
Yeah, I hope that that's the case for lots of people, because I agree with you 100% on that one. So,
I love your podcast. I was just listening to the one you did with Posey.
Alicia. Mm-hmm.
Alicia.
Yeah.
That was so good. I loved it.
She's awesome. Yeah, totally. Well, it gives me an excuse to like call everybody I like on the phone and talk to them. So it's been perfect for me. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and you alluded to it earlier, about the market. So you have, is it an evening when people who are at Squam, can have the fair, exactly, can sell their wares, and as you said, people from outside come in and shop. And so, was that always part of the experience, or did you bring that in sort of at some point later after you'd already started? And sort of why have that as part of it?
It was always there from the very beginning, and I do have to share this one story with you because I still can't believe it happened. But the very first year, 2008, I had the art fair on Saturday night, and the reason for it was I had no budget to offer teachers travel money, and most of the teachers were coming from the West Coast. So I felt that if I had a fair, they could make back their travel money by selling their work. So that was my reason for doing the fair originally. I had no idea it would grow into what it's grown into. And it's its own separate entity, really, in a sense. I mean, it's all part of the weekend, but it's really its own. It's a big deal for me, anyway. So the first year, it wasn't on campus at the camps because I didn't even ask for the space. I didn't think they'd ever let me have carloads of people come through, and I didn't think people would drive there. It was like it just didn't seem, it's remote. It didn't seem like anyone would come. So I set it up in town, which was Sandwich, which is the town I lived in at the time, in the elementary school. And I had a whole program where you had a passport if you went to these other little shops in downtown on Main Street, and then you came to the fair. And I went, and this is the same weekend where I was running this whole thing for the very first time by myself. And I had 3 full days of classes, and I went up and I was like setting up tables, and I was setting up the whole thing, and I was making lunch dinners for the teachers because I knew they hadn't had dinner yet. And it was just like, when I look back at that now, I'm like, I have no idea how I did that. I have no idea how that happened. But the first year it was in town, and then the directors at Rocky Wald were like, why are you taking everyone up there? Have them come here. And I was like, oh, I could have it here? And they were like, yeah, sure. So then the first June was 2009. We had the first fair in June when Ravelry, it was the Ravelry, and it still is the Ravelry, and say that 5 times fast. And that was it. Then it was like there was no going back, because what people loved was they got a chance to come on campus and sit by the lake and see all the beauty and go to the fair. So it was like it was a wonderful little excursion. It was like everybody wanted to come, and I didn't get that. I was like, why would anyone want to drive all the way? And it's like, because then they could be at the camp, and it's beautiful. Right. So it's taken on its own thing, and it's kind of extraordinary, but I have it on really good, people who do Renegade and Unique in LA and lots of fairs have told me they do in 2 hours at Squam what they would do better in two days at a fair. Because it's a very, very, there's only about maybe 400, 500, 600 people who come, but they are your ideal buyer. They're coming to buy, and they want exactly what you're selling. Right, so it's not like they're just wandering through to get a candy cane, or a snow cone, and there's an art fair. It's like they're coming for this. And so,
and they're not going to leave without buying something. I mean, if you've driven all the way there and you've set aside that time, you're going to buy something. And the stuff is amazing. I mean, the vendors who come, and lots of vendors come. First dibs go to teachers, because it's always still for the teachers first. And then, but not all the teachers want to sell. And then next dibs goes to anyone who wants to vend from the attendees. And then it's open to anyone who comes. And we always have, I would say, at least 45% of the people who vend are coming from outside. And
it's just the end result is like the work is just gorgeous and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So,
yarns, hand-dyed yarns, and all kinds of stuff. So
how many vendors do you have for that?
40.
Okay.
And
all
we
right.
can never go over 40. It's
Okay.
like maxed.
Right. Yeah. So you have a lot of time then to sort of walk around the whole space and
Yes.
see everybody and then come back. Because that's how I shop at craft fairs. Like, I want to see everything, and then I go back, and I'm like, that was the one thing I wanted. Yeah.
Exactly. You want to do the loops, get the whole suss of the thing.
Right.
And it's also a party. I mean, it's really a party. It's, we call it a revelry. And this fall, it's kind of exciting. Creative Bug is hosting the fair this year in the fall, and they're calling it the Creative Bug Casbah. So it's going to be fabulous and Moroccan, but it's definitely a party. I mean, there's free beer and there's cake and there's prizes and raffles, and so it's really fun. And it's the last night for anyone who's been there all week for the weekend. It's their last night together, so they're going around and saying goodbyes and buying things and buying stuff to bring home to their kids, and it's a party. It's really fun.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Yeah. It sounds like it was a really good idea that kind of started with one particular motivation, but actually has become almost vital to the whole experience. Yeah, that's cool.
You're so insightful. It's crazy. You're helping me see, but that's actually how everything good in my life has been. When I have, for instance, Squam was for one other woman. When I came back from Artfest, I didn't know who she was, but in my mind, I was like, there's got to be one other woman in New Hampshire who thinks she has a social disorder and who needs this. And she might not know about Artfest, and she might not be able to afford to go there or have childcare or whatever. So in my mind, when I was creating Squam originally, I had this very singular focus. There's got to be this one woman. And all kinds of things have grown out from that. And I feel that that's a really nice approach to life and to projects, is to just keep a really clear focus and then allow it to have its own life. I didn't have any vision for the art fair, and I really honestly did not have a vision for Squam. I thought it was a one-time event. I was teaching at the time. I was never looking to be an arts retreat administrator. I promise. I never had that on my, it's my bucket list. I can't wait till I grow up and I'm an event coordinator. But here I am. So I just feel like if you keep really focused on a seed of something, then let it grow. It'll do its own thing. It will, especially if you're really seeding it from a place of love and passion and authenticity. It will. You don't have to worry at all about how it will grow.
And Squam now, despite sort of not having, grand plans for it the first year or whatever, but it is now your business, right? This is your full-time job. This is how you support yourself all year. This is your job. And do you have support staff who work with you throughout the year or just seasonally?
No, I do. I have both. And it changes each year as Squam has changed. I have changed. My needs have changed. But right now I have a full-time employee, just on the books. IRS knows about him and everything. Full-time employee. And then I do have 2 seasonal employees who are going to be helping me out, who are both Squamies. They've come Squam, Mindy Sonis and Nina Gilbert. I'm just realizing it's probably Nina. It's Nina Bina. Anyway, so it's Nina Gilbert. But they are going to help me because I've never taught at Squam, even though I'm a teacher and I love to teach. My first teaching at Squam was an online workshop I did last spring. And it was such a pleasure that I was like, I got to do this. So they are going to cover me. This is kind of an experiment. We'll see how it goes. But they're going to cover me for spring so that I can actually teach. So we'll see how that goes. So they're going to help out with the fair and,
all the stuff.
Lights out stuff.
Yeah.
But Forrest Elliott is my full-time employee, and I can't do it by myself. There's no way.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, though, I still get asked all the time when people are like, so what do you do? And I'll be like, I run these art retreats. And they're like, so what do you do the rest of the year?
Right.
And I'm like, have you ever planned a wedding? Have you ever planned a wedding? And how long did that take you?
Right.
Well, imagine 4 weddings in a row.
Right.
And then you'll start to understand.
Yeah.
But you can't explain it to people.
No.
I don't know why it takes as much time as it does.
Well, yeah. I mean, just going back to my summer camp experience. So now, as I said, my kids go to my camp and, they email us, in December. We have to sign up for camp in early December.
Yeah.
And, it's like, this is like a whole office full of people's full-time job is to get these 2 months in the summer planned. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. I am, just a super planner so that there's a lot of relaxed time. Like I'm a big believer. It's just my way of life in general. It's like, I like to do everything on the front end, so that then you get lots of time to relax. So I do dial in all the details and think about everything so that then it can just be, and I'm not there fussing over things. And I'm a planner.
Yeah, I'm a planner too, and I also front load lots of work. The same approach. Yeah. And speaking of that, so sort of one final question just about the experience of Squam before we move on to some of your recommendations. Is there time built in, or I guess maybe people can build time in just by choosing what they schedule and don't schedule for the weekend, but is there time built in for just doing nothing, or if you just wanted to sit on the dock, or go on a run or whatever? Like, how possible is it to have just sort of unscheduled or downtime for the people who are sort of introverted or just need some time alone?
You are amazing. So a few minutes ago, you asked me something about the teachers and taking care of the teachers, and I was going to tell you this bit, and then I didn't because I didn't want to take us off the track. But one of the things I put into place for the teachers was originally when I first started Squam, it was 3 6-hour classes. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So by Saturday night, everybody was happy, but they were completely fried. They didn't have time to integrate and process everything they'd been learning and experience. There was no breathing time. So I took out one of the classes, and of course, everyone went into an uproar, like, you're taking stuff away. And I'm like, just chill out, relax, see how it goes. And as a result, like, for instance, in June, you have a full day of class on Thursday, but Friday morning, there's no classes. So the teachers get a breathing space and the students get a breathing space. And that's a time where you can sit on the dock, sleep in, go back to the studio, keep working on what you were working on last night. It's just that breathing time to like process and receive everything that the day before had been bringing to you. And it is funny. There are no shortage of type A's who are like, but what else is there to do? So I do put in some very optional workshops. Like in the spring, we have this Japanese boro stitching, and we have Ann Wheel is going to be doing arm knitting, and so just different things on offer, but they're very loose, and there's nothing required. If you signed up, you still don't have to show up. If you decide I really want to go for a swim instead, no harm, no foul. But I do have a couple of things in place. So that came again, me taking care of the teachers and the students too. I mean, I'm a mother hen. I'm kind of like, that was my failing early on. I was doing too much. Like the very first year, you might fall over, but I arranged everybody's travel the first year.
Wow.
I mean, I was so worried that they wouldn't know how to get there. And then someone was just like, we all get around on our own the other 364 days. Like, I was like, oh, okay. So I've backed off a lot, but I'm a nurturer. I want people to feel good. That's my goal. I just want I want you to feel good. And I feel, with women, I mean, the retreats are open to everyone, and there's about 10% men who come, but it's mostly women who gather. And they just, they take care of so many people, and they're doing so much, and life is so full, and it's so driven. And I want them to just have some time to feel good. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that's a great mission. That is really a great mission. So go you. All right. So let's just, let's make sure we hit on a couple of recommendations, and I have one very short recommendation, but, we already talked about, is it Equa Holmes?
Equa Holmes, yeah.
Yeah. And her artwork, and which I'll link to so people can check it out. Yeah. I didn't realize she lived so close to me, so I'll have to see if I can, see an exhibit somewhere nearby.
Wait, you're outside Boston.
Yeah. In Wellesley.
What?
Yeah.
Wellesley's where my sister lives. She's on Pine Street. I have to come. I'll
have to come.
That's funny. And my ex-husband, I spent so much of my life in Wellesley. Oh, that's funny. That's a whole other conversation.
We'll have to chat.
For some reason, I thought you were in D.C. Oh,
no, I'm originally from the D.C. area, though.
We're so getting together. You're in my hood, girlfriend.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely. I'll send you, if she has any kind of shows, I will definitely.
I'll have to go and see because it looks amazing. And there's another artist that you recommended, Jeremy Miranda.
Isn't his work beautiful?
Oh my goodness. So you sent me your list yesterday and I was clicking through, looking at everything.
He's not far. I think he's out in the coast of Maine.
So describe his paintings because, wow, like totally like nothing I've seen before.
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I would have to have it right in front of me if you want to. Can I just spell his last name for me?
So I think it's Miranda, like Miranda.
Let me just bring them up.
Yeah.
Because, oh, God. They're just... I find them to be everything that I love in painting. First of all, they're New England, and I'm partial to New England. I like the New England architecture. What can I say? They feel poetic. His use of light. Yeah. His use of nature. There's just a very dreamy quality to them.
That's exactly how I thought. Like, it looks like a dream.
But they're not sentimental.
No.
So there's like a clean edge to them, and they feel like real places, but they also feel like places that I would really like to sit in. There's just, I just love his work. Yeah. I love his work. Totally. I love his lines. I love his use of color. I think it's just that it feels very familiar to me. As I say, he's putting images together of places I feel like I live and I visit. But he's doing it in a way that feels very fresh. And I also like a traditional style. I'm not, I don't know. I just love his work. They're evocative. They're just beautiful.
And they're like juxtapositions of different things together that you wouldn't expect together, which I think is interesting. So, because I actually tend to like things that are more modern and abstract, but his work really appealed to me because of those juxtapositions. Like, it almost throws you off. You're like, wait a minute. Why are those two things together?
Yeah, especially if you look through his 2012, where he's got like the ocean out the window and there's the computer sitting there. And, all the greenhouses he did, all those lines, to me, those feel like a really modern, clean, like if someone liked modern mid-century. Yeah. And then, the 2012 work, I think if you like more of a modern California edge, I would suggest looking at those.
Yeah, totally cool. All right. Well, thank you sometimes it's hard to find, good recommendations for new artists you haven't heard from. So I think those two are really good ones. And I wanted to just recommend a podcast that I've been loving. I've gotten recently more and more into learning about journalism, which is not something that I really came into this knowing much about, but is sort of a newer interest. And so I've been listening to the Long Form podcast. And it's a group of guys who host it, and they kind of take turns doing the interviews. So one week it will be one of them interviewing the guest, and the next week it'll be another. And the show's about an hour, and they interview people who write primarily long form pieces, but who write primarily for the internet, who write for Gawker, who write for, the Hairpin.
Slate. Oh, okay.
Yeah, who write for Slate, who write for the New York Times, who write for the New Yorker, but definitely a focus on people who write for online. And
where are they based?
I don't know. I haven't done research on it.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. I'm totally going to check that out. That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah. And I write a lot for the internet, and, it's a different sort of thing because you have, first of all, you can update what you're writing. So if if things have changed or there's been, a development, you can go back in and add that. And that's something that's really different from writing for print. And then there's comments and shares and a certain level of, potential vulnerability that comes with that. So, these guests that they have have so much insight into that, and also just generally into journalism, like how to, collect information from sources, how to find sources, like whether somebody is on the record, off the record, on background, on deep background. Like these are things that I don't know a lot about, but I'm sort of learning about. So I've like pieced it together by listening to 100 I like this obsessive listening. So anyway, it's been great for me. And so people who are listening to this show who might be interested in journalism, I recommend the long form podcast because
I'm totally checking
lovely.
it out.
Yeah.
Totally checking it out.
Very well done. So, all right. Well, that was my only recommendation. So Eilzabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Walshing Apps podcast. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Abby, you are a total delight, and you're in Wellesley, so watch out. I'm going to come right up your driveway.
Yeah, totally.
I know where you live.
We got to
hang out.
We got to get together sometime soon.
I would love that.
Yeah. So where can we connect with you and with Squam online?
SquamArtWorkshops.com. There's a blog there, and I am not the best, but I do try and keep up connecting. I have Mystic Vixen, which I haven't posted at since September. I moved, and I had a lot going on here this fall. So, and I also had a blog, which I might get back into in a month, about Providence called Provilove. But mostly if you wanted to find me, and what I'm most recently doing, it's SquamArtWorkshops.com, the blog. And then I'm also on Instagram every day.
Yeah.
So, but that's just, if people follow images, but mine are just of my dogs. So I can't imagine it's that exciting.
You can definitely connect with Eilzabeth and her dogs on Instagram for sure. And also you're often out in nature taking pictures of where you live and stuff. So it gives a little bit of a sense of what it looks like near you. So
thanks. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. So you've been listening to the Walshing Apps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg, and I invite you to visit my blog, walshingapps.com, where you'll find helpful information for creative entrepreneurs, as well as tutorials and patterns for making stuffed animals and dolls. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.